Welcome. We're glad that you could join us for this session on engineering for one planet and how to align our textbooks and learning materials with these emerging trends and accreditation criteria. So we're going to wait just a couple minutes for other people to join in, and then we will get started.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Tony Passano, and I think that recording is the signal for us to formally start. Thank you so much for joining us here today. It's great to see some familiar faces. We welcome you here to this project where the title is Aligning Textbook and Learning Materials Updates with Emerging Trends and Accreditation Criteria in partnership with the Engineering for One Planet initiative through the Lemelson Foundation. Again, we're very excited to be here, and I'm going to keep us moving forward. So again, my name's Tony Passano. I'm a fellow with Change the Chamber and the U.S. Partnership for Education for Sustainable Development. Alongside myself is Aaron, who's going to be sharing here today. Say hi, Aaron. Hi, Aaron. And then Deb, I'll pass it over to you if you want to do an introduction for yourself.
Yeah, just a quick introduction. So I spent 42 years as a professor of renewable energy technology and sustainable development, and also corporate and campus sustainability that was taught internationally as well. I've been president for the last 20 some years of the U.S. Partnership for Education for Sustainable Development, and we have within that a network of 45 academic societies. We've had this network for 20 years, and these 45 academic societies have all been working on integrating sustainability into the education, the standards, the research, and so they're a part of this as well. And then the other part that I want to share with you is that we work with HESI. HESI is the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative. It's 10 United Nations agencies collaborating on education for sustainable development. So I'll hand it over to Cindy Anderson to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Anderson. Such a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for being here. I'm an EOP co-founder along with Cindy Cooper, and I'm an EOP strategy consultant with the Lemelson Foundation and a sustainability consultant with my own group called Alula Consulting. And I've been working with Cindy Cooper on this initiative since 2017, before its inception. Its official inception was in 2020. I'll hand it over to Cindy Cooper now.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so great to be here. This is really an exciting day. This is the first time we're having a meeting about this topic. So thank you for coming. So we heard a little bit about me already from Cindy Anderson, and my background is in social entrepreneurship and educational transformation. I'm Director of Educational Transformation for the Lemelson Foundation. And for those who may not know the Lemelson Foundation, we're a family foundation. It's a private foundation based in Portland, Oregon, launched over 30 years ago by Jerry Lemelson. He was an extraordinary, prolific inventor. And the mission of the foundation is improving lives through invention. So this work is near and dear to what we represent. And over the past 30 years, the Lemelson Foundation has supported its mission with more than $300 million in grants. So today, we're working with you. We're so lucky to work with Deborah and Tony and Aaron on this project. We're excited, a new frontier for EOP. Things sometimes start small. So it doesn't mean they're not going to get big. And that's what we're going to share a little bit more about soon. And also of note, one of our presenters, Jeremy Faludi, Dr. Faludi, was also there in 2017 in the first research project that eventually led to Engineering for One Planet. So we're really lucky to have him back here today.
So everyone, thank you for joining us today. And if you could just share introduction as we just introduced ourselves in the chat. Number one, you want to share your name, your institution, or your company, where you're from, so we can get a sense of who we're talking to here, what textbook titles you're working on or have worked on, and their updating schedule, and how are you already integrating sustainability into your textbooks? And if you're not doing so, feel free to say you haven't yet, because honesty is paramount. And if you're not updating your book in the next year or so, what can you update now? If you're someone who doesn't have a title that you can update, can you update the instructor resources or any of the online materials right now? So we'd like to hear about that. But if those questions don't apply to you, please tell us about your interest in sustainability and what brought you here today. We'd love to hear a little bit more about you. So I'll give you a moment to take the time and do that. But I also want to just thank you for coming here today and just having a chance to spend some time with us and talk about this new project. And I think you'll be really excited about what we have to say. So I'm going to hand it back over to Cindy, who's doing the next slide.
And I put the questions in the chat too. So if you need them again, feel free to go to the chat.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you. Yeah, so why is this important? Why do we want to prioritize sustainability in engineering education and into engineering textbooks? I think the fact that you're here, you have some opinions on this. This is, these are some of the things that we think about quite a bit when we think about the need for engineering for one planet. First and foremost, because engineering impacts everything around us and for lifetimes to come, right? In massive ways. And because of this, engineering excellence needs to be about not just the technical excellence, but the broader impacts, taking into account the environment, impacts on society, making sure people aren't being left behind. There's also a really big need for more engineers to work on our urgent issues like climate issues that we face, species loss, pollution. So there is a prevention piece of this, but there's also the need to point more engineers at the problems. There's massive demand from students, which is understandable given all the problems that we're facing, and they're demanding this in their education, in engineering education specifically, as well as in their careers. The energy transition is pushing for more need, and the extent of the need for sustainability is recognized globally. For example, the UN has issued recently a consensus statement that higher education must change curriculum to integrate sustainability. And all of this means that employers, the professional preparation of engineers, the expectations are changing about what that needs to include. And the demand for people with green skills is outpacing supply. So, we need to make sure that students are prepared with these skills. We need to do it as quickly as possible. And engineering textbooks are a way to reach as many faculty and students as possible quickly. Next slide. So for those who might not be familiar with the way that Engineering for One Planet works and our goal, the slide includes our goal. The way that we work is really collaboratively. So from the beginning, before we even launched DOP, we worked with hundreds of people to understand the landscape and create what the activities would be in the Engineering for One Planet initiative. So we've been doing that for many years now, and our community is quite large. Ultimately, we hope that we don't need Engineering for One Planet, that sustainability just becomes a core tenet of the profession, and that sustainable engineering will just be good engineering. So we have a lot of tools. We have a massive community that can accelerate the path toward this goal of preparing all engineers to protect and improve our planet and our lives. And we're just here to make it easier for everyone to do that as quickly as possible. And you'll hear more about the details of the resources soon. Thank you. So worth stating what we mean by sustainability. People have a lot of different ideas of what that word means. There's a holistic approach in Engineering for One Planet. So social, environmental, economic, those are all parts of the considerations that are included in this umbrella and in the tools that we provide, but also professional skills. And you can imagine why professional skills would also be important, right? Because if you are trying to influence others, you need to be able to communicate. You're always going to be working in teams with diverse people from different backgrounds, different disciplines. How do you work together to create the changes that we need? Critical thinking is needed. There are always going to be trade-offs. There's not one simple solution in the world that we live in and in engineering for a better world. So we need to have the ability to critically think about those options, and engineers need that critical thinking ability to consider trade-offs and the complexities. Next slide. So a little bit about how far we've come. We launched in 2020, as Cindy mentioned. In 2020, during the pandemic, we had 5 pilot grants, and now We have over 104 grantees. So over a very short amount of time, really just 4 years. Those pilots with 5 schools, those were 2-year pilots. So the momentum really didn't start until 2022. But in that short period of time, we've had more than 500 faculty using our resources. The EOP framework is a cornerstone of those resources to modify or create more than 600 courses. So they're reaching tens of thousands of students. They're eager to have materials that they can teach from, textbooks that talk about sustainability. So it's not just in their syllabus, but in the materials that they're assigning and in the things that students are reading. So this growth is happening very quickly. And worldwide, people are using EOP materials literally all over the world, and we can't track those. So those numbers aren't even reflected in these bullets that you see here. Those bullets just reflect grantees that we can track. Next slide. So speaking of grantees we can track, as I mentioned, we've had 104. They don't even all fit in the slide anymore, but this is about 80 of them. And what you can see here is how many different schools have been involved, the different types of schools. There are, again, dozens of faculty in these schools that are all working on integration of sustainability. We've also had collaborations with major, organizations like ABET. ABET is the global accreditation body for engineering and STEM. We have a prize with ABET recognizing innovative practices in integrating sustainability in engineering education. We have worked with the National Science Foundation through co-funding. At this point, we've co-funded more than $4 million together related to EOP. We've partnered with the American Society for Engineering Education on a mini grant program that has led to a lot of the grantees you see on this screen. And we've had collaborations with dozens of other organizations. Last year, for example, we worked with 18 different professional organizations and engineering societies, including ASME, ASCE, IEEE, and many others, to co-develop and publish a teaching guide focused on climate change, because that was one of the topics that has been in demand. So just some examples of the reach. And, again, we're excited to have you join the fold. Let me now pass it on to Cindy Anderson. She'll tell you a little bit more about the ways that we can help.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate. I get to tell you really quickly about the plethora of EOP resources we have available to you as authors and as potentially faculty if you're teaching as well. As Cindy mentioned, we have the EOP framework, which I'll dive into a little bit in a little bit here, as well as several companion teaching guides. All of these materials are available online on our website to download for free. They are also they have Creative Commons licensing, which just means you can use these materials however you want. So feel free to adapt them and adopt them however you want. We encourage you to do that, whether it's integration in your textbooks or in your classrooms. And I also want to share that these were co-created with hundreds of individuals, so that contributed to the content themselves, as well as vetting them and using these materials in their classrooms. And the combination of these 5 companion teaching guides, we have over 90 specific teaching activities that can be integrated into your textbooks and classrooms. In the next slide, I'll just jump in a little bit more deeply about the EOP framework, which we launched in 2020, revised in 2022, and then again relaunched in 2026. And during those revision processes, we really are listening to what our community wants and needs to better and more easily integrate sustainability into their teaching and learning materials. I won't go into all the details, but we have 9 different topic areas within the EOP framework where systems thinking is at the center. And then there's a number of technical and sustainability focused topic areas, including environmental literacy, environmental impact assessment, social responsibility. And then we also have 2 different professional and leadership skills topic areas focused on those skills, which include critical thinking and communication and teamwork, which are really important to advance sustainability initiatives as professional engineers. In the next slide, I just really wanted to highlight the fact that within the EOP framework, all of the student learning outcomes, all 94 of them, are mapped to all 7 ABET student outcomes, so where they match up, align, and then also to the 17 UN SDGs, and also Bloom's taxonomy. And we've done this because our community has told us this makes it easier for them to reach accreditation approval through ABET, easier to integrate into their classrooms, and makes it more useful to them. All of these resources are available on our website, as I mentioned. I think the link has been put into the chat there. And I just want to have an open invitation, if anybody has any questions after they take a look at these, to connect with me directly. I led the development of them and the revision of them, so I know them inside out and backwards. Happy to help with that. And then I'm really happy to introduce the next person who's going to be speaking with you today, and a dear friend and colleague, longtime colleague, Dr. Jeremy Faludi. He's also a new author. I know he's been working on his book for, I don't know, has it been 10 years at least? Maybe even longer. Maybe even longer. As long as I've known him, I'm sure he's been working on his textbook. But anyway, really exciting and proud of him for launching his book. And also, as Cindy Cooper mentioned earlier, Jeremy Faludi was involved in the original research, which ultimately unfolded into becoming Engineer for One Planet. So he's been involved with EOP since its inception. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jeremy.
And Jeremy, before you get started, I just want to mention that I know we're doing a lot of talking right now, but we are going to ask for your feedback, your input, to hear from you in just a little bit. So just giving you a heads up about that. Okay, Jeremy, over to you.
Cool. So I think that I'm here to answer questions that other authors might have. Like Cindy said, we've been working together for many years now. It's been a few years since I've been actively involved with EOP, but I'm still around and happy to help out if you want. But yeah, the main thing that I can talk about today for the other authors is the book that I wrote, Sustainable Design from Vision to Action, because it closes the main gap that I see in sustainable engineering, sustainable design, things like that, is turning all these high-level concepts like EOP's learning objectives into concrete action. What do I do for this particular product that I'm designing? Or if you're a chemical engineer, some process that you're designing, or if you're an electrical engineer, whatever your field is, how do you operationalize these things? And because I think that we're all in pretty broad agreement about what we need to do, but people are largely flailing around about how to do it, or at least that's where more of the struggles are. And that's why the name of the book is From Vision to Action, because I think that's what we need the most of. And I guess I can also link to the book in the comments if anyone is interested. And also, by the way, the book is going open source. We haven't settled on an exact date yet, but either end of this month or in September. And the book is centered around mostly mechanical engineering and industrial design, with some entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship, if you're in an existing company. But we need content like this that bridges the gap from vision to action in other fields too. Like electrical engineering. I do have 3 chapters in this book on energy, but proper electrical engineers would be able to go into way more detail on more specialized topics, or chemical engineers or civil engineers, etc. And yet a lot of the chapters in this book would apply equally well to electrical engineering, chemical engineering, civil engineering, or other fields. And so there could be opportunities to not exactly copy and paste my chapters into new chapters of your books, but could at least be heavily inspired. And I can share the raw text of various chapters depending on what you're interested in. Uh, I don't have a lot of time to do extra writing along with you for these new chapters, but I could at least get you started, and hopefully that would save you a lot of time. Um,
Jeremy, I had a question, and I think we were kind of curious too, just as a team, and we know you have so much experience with EOP and helped, way back when in 2017, and we were curious from your perspective, like how do students receive EOP, and then what's it like for instructors in using the materials?
Yeah, so I would say students don't directly see EOP at all, usually, because EOP is mostly a matter of, the learning objectives and what are you planning for the curriculum. It's not the actual educational materials that students use. It's not their quizzes and exams and
Right. Or
homework.
if it is, it's embedded in and it's not like it's called out as EOP. You just do what you do with writing your textbook, and then you put these materials in, and it's being able to bring these topics to life for the students. So we've seen excitement around, yes, students care about a sustainable future and they want to learn about it. And that's what you do all the time, right, Jeremy? Is you're always thinking of sustainability and sharing it. Do you find your students are interested in that topic? Does it engage them in the learning?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, engagement levels vary because being at TU Delft now, this is the first university that I've taught at where sustainability is actually required, for students. Back at Stanford and Berkeley and Dartmouth, those places are all, any of the sustainability classes that I would be teaching would be electives. And so they would inherently only be populated by students who already care a lot. And so, and MCAD, Minneapolis College of Art and Design, that was a master's program entirely dedicated to sustainable design. So again, everyone who showed up was already motivated. But at TU Delft, we have 15 different full quarter long courses at both the bachelor level and master's level, just in my department, just in sustainable product design. That's not even counting like mechanical engineering, architecture, electrical engineering, anything else. That's just in product design.
Mhm.
And yeah, and the class uh, that is using the textbook primarily is one that is required for all second year bachelor students. And so their levels of engagement vary, because any required class, some people are only there because they have to be. But overall, we still see good levels of engagement. And there are definitely students that come to me years later saying, "Hey, can I do my master's thesis with you because that class was so great?" And I think this stuff is so important and stuff like that.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing this. We really appreciate it. We may come back to you. We hope you'll stay with us with some additional thoughts or questions. I think we want to turn now to talk about, as you can hear, there's a lot there, right? And everybody's busy. So, how can this textbook team that we have help to make it easy for you? To make sure that you are, of course, including this content not only because of accreditation criteria, but because of the need for it in the world and because students care. Um, and how can we do it easily to, to have you be up to speed? So I'll hand this over to
Thanks, Deb.
Erin.
So we're going to talk about just some of the things we can help you do as the textbook team, and that is myself, Tony, and Deborah. So one of the first things we can do is talk to you about the EOP materials and how we can integrate them into some of your core textbook content. And that is, your chapters, all the good stuff, the meat of your book. Then there's classroom activities and group projects, which you also heard Cindy talk about in some the vetted activities. We can help adapt those, or we can help you come up with some of your own. The student assignments, including problems and design challenges. And if you remember from the 9 topics from Engineering for One Planet, design is part of that. It's something that we're trying to make sure the next generation of engineers and scientists are well versed in more holistic and human-centered design and social responsibility. And the materials for educators, marketing and instructor resources. Instructor resources is a really good place too, where we can talk to instructors about sustainability and integrating it into the classroom and not making it seem like it's an add-on or it should be a part of an elective, but it just being part of the core content of a class. Next. So what our support, you saw that there's a great library of materials and vetted problems. We can help you go through that and see what is most relevant to you. We've already read it. We know what's there. So we're happy to help you navigate that. We can help you develop customized materials for your textbooks or your any kind of materials that you're developing specifically. Like we've worked on discussion questions extensively before. And we can help review your author drafts and make suggestions for where sustainability can be included. And when we say sustainability, we don't necessarily just mean environmental sustainability and stewardship. We're talking about the social responsibility, the parts that relate to responsible business, public health, and other parts of what makes a human-centered design part of good engineering education. And we can help at the very end implement expanded marketing because your product is now set apart because you've made these great inclusions and these relevant updates, and we can help you tell people about them and get the word out even further than you could yourself or your publisher. We want to help with that because you've taken the time, and now we can help you tell everybody and like trumpet your achievement here.
Okay.
Back to you, Deb.
Thanks. So I want to talk about the benefits for you, but I also want to back up just a bit. This isn't the first time we've done this. So 20 years ago, when the Disciplinary Associations Network for Sustainability was created out of the U.S. partnership with our 45 academic societies, that was our first round of getting these concepts into textbooks. And they ended up in a diverse group of textbooks, from a global business textbook to an intro to psychology textbook. And we ended up not only helping the authors to integrate in these concepts and these activities and these engagements for students and the assessments, but also to help them with the marketing, because there is such an interest from so many students. And you want more adoptions. And now there's an interest with this project from all these faculty who are already using these materials, but they don't necessarily have the textbooks that match the EOP framework. So they're looking for these kinds of materials. So we did that once through the Disciplinary Associations Network for Sustainability. We kicked that off about 18 years ago. It still goes on. And then we did an intensive project about 3 years ago with the U.S. Department of Energy in one of their national labs, and it was on the decarbonization of buildings and also how we can electrify buildings so that we can bring renewables on to the grid and get that clean energy transition. We focused on national, but we do work with the Clean Energy, our textbook team, which is Tony, myself, Erin, in collaboration with the 2 Cindys and with EOP. We do work with the clean energy ministers from around the world and the clean energy ministerial. But today we're going to focus on just the national piece. And so there was, it got integrated in those ideas that I mentioned to a number of textbooks. And that just happened in the last, 2-3 years, because a lot of the great materials were on websites and a lot of instructors won't go to the websites. They want it, but they want it right in Chapter 3, Chapter 7, etc. when they assign it to students. So by you including these materials, and we can help make it easy for you you'll be able to more effectively improve student engagement in learning and course performance. And we've seen that in a variety of different settings. You know, the surveys were out there that showing that students were even picking their college or university based on how much sustainability was going on. And that also plays into the course as well. Secondly, it helps students with course completion rates. We've heard some real concerns from the engineering community, especially with things now online. Students think they can watch the recorded lectures, but they run out of time with the studying, or they needed help with concepts and they didn't leave enough in their structured schedule of studying to get it done, and then they don't perform well. Right? We've even heard from some engineering instructors and related courses that then they get bad performance reviews as an instructor just because the students didn't do well in the class. And so it ends up being kind of this downward spiral. We've seen a number of settings where when you bring in sustainability, the students are interested, they engage in the topics earlier and more, and it improves learning. In fact, we have a FIPSE grant we got from the U.S. Department of Education a number of years ago, and it was actually called Sustainability Improves Student Learning in STEM. And then we took off the in STEM because we found it was true with all these other academic areas as well. So it helps students just be more successful. It also helps all of you and the instructors to make sure that their assignments, the course materials address this accreditation criteria. So now it is in the criteria. By the way, you should know that when I first started the Disciplinary Associations Network for Sustainability, it was actually a couple of guys at ASCE, the civil engineers, who came to me and said, Deb, you need to do this network. And so you guys have been leaders for a long time, but it's leaders where they have to go get the material somewhere else instead of making sure it's embedded. And I know some of you already have it embedded, so this is just a way to enhance it even more. And then the other benefit is that the professional careers now expect students to understand this, because lots of times their clients are asking the questions, or because just it's the responsible thing to do, right? Let's cause less pollution, let's create a more circular economy, let's reduce human suffering through what we do. And so it helps to better prepare them for the expectations of their employers. All of these are benefits that occur when you engage with our textbook team. And then we've already talked about how you get expanded marketing, and it can help you with increased adoptions, or at least stabilizing the adoptions that you have as well. Okay, so those are the benefits. I'm going to hand it over to Susan now. We have had the pleasure, oh, what a pleasure, of working with her on her book, and she's going to tell you a bit about that. Susan?
Okay, well, thank you. And actually, thank you, Deborah. Just a little bit of background. This was a serendipitous meeting back in, was it March or so? The Association of Environmental Engineering Association of Environmental Engineering and Science Professors were holding a webinar on sustainability. Deborah was part of that. I was part as one of the members of the education committee. And that's how we got connected. And she and Erin and Tony have been absolutely wonderful. And it's been quite a journey, because what it's done is this textbook. Mackenzie Davis is your colleague of mine. He passed away about a year ago. And I was asked by McGraw-Hill if I would revise the textbook. I agreed to do that actually before Mac had passed away. And if I could have a co-author, and Belinda Sturm is my co-author, and she's working mainly on the wastewater side. But what it's done is it's allowed me to take what was very much a traditional water and wastewater engineering textbook and think about it in somewhat of a different light. I basically did all the revisions except the first chapter. And the first chapter is really focused on really integrating those concepts from both One Water, One Health, and EOP into the mindset of how we think about designing our water and wastewater systems. And it's been interesting because in doing that, I ended up revising, and poor Aaron and Jeremy and Tony I keep sending them other chapters. You're going to get another chapter. But it's
Bring it on, Susan.
all right. It's caused me to rethink. Okay, well, how really do we integrate these concepts of sustainability? How do we integrate that human perspective into what was traditionally, what's the flow rate? What's the load? How do we design this system? And it's really focused on kind of the nuts and bolts engineering. Aaron and Tony in particular have been absolutely wonderful. And I send them material, they come back, we go back and forth, think about it. They've helped me really think about it in terms of how do I present material and with much more of a systems thinking. They've helped write discussion questions. They've reviewed end of chapter content. They've helped prepare, and we're just kind of starting some on the instructor resources, and that I can add later, but helping with that. So they really were integrating this material directly into the textbook. The other issue that I find, having been an ABET coordinator and now a PEV and evaluator, one of the things that faculty often struggle with is that whole concept of student outcome 2 and 4 and integrating and actually assessing the impact of social, cultural, economic, environmental factors, and how do they assess that. So kind of thinking about that and thinking about how we can design problems that really address those issues that faculty then can use as part of the assessment process.
Yeah, Susan, I just want to jump in and say there's when we go back and forth on the chapters, it's one of the things that I love. One of the parts that I thought was really powerful was you said, one of the points you made was you want to reuse existing like buildings and reservoirs and pipelines, chemical systems, when it's practicable. And then after that, I was able to write, the suggestion of why that's in there. Using existing assets reduces capital costs, construction waste, materials consumption, embodied environmental impacts, the land disturbance, and the disturbance to the surrounding communities as well. So that way we give it not just this perspective that is in a traditional book, but also, how do we open it to the 9 topics of engineering for one planet? How do we include the ABET outcomes? And how do we have that systems thinking that includes a community, that includes the economic factors and the environmental factors as well?
So I just want to thank the 3 of you, for the help in terms of, having somebody to go back and think about those issues. I mean, you've read chapter 26, which includes a number of case studies. And Aaron and Tony's comments have been just really helpful, and me reflecting back, okay, well, how can we incorporate these concepts to even a greater extent in the material? So if you're thinking about doing this, I encourage you to do it. I also want my editor, Jenny's on. Jenny's been wonderful and supportive and encouraging and allowing me to explore new ways of really, of really thinking about how do we present this material.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Susan.
much.
It's been great to work
Yeah.
with you too.
I think it really brings it to life. And truly, it's just been fun. And it just makes it so much easier to use this valuable material and integrate it in because we're doing it together, right? And that's the support you get. So, okay, let's go to any questions that you have. I know that a number of you may be watching this as a recording because you couldn't make this specific date. That's fine. You'll have our emails and how you can reach out to us. But also for those of you who are here, if you could share in the chat, and if you want to, we can discuss the next steps for you. So what plans do you have to include sustainability? I think, for instance, Jenny, we've talked to, you're here today, and you're going to share it with all of your authors, right? And with your colleagues, and they have authors. So maybe I'm not saying it well. You could put that in the chat. Others who are here, anything you want to put in the chat, tell us what you're already planning to do, but also what do you need to move forward with this? I see way too many students that are doomed and gloomed about what they see going on in the world. They get apathetic. They think they just have to take care of themselves, and I don't think that's what we want to be graduating, right? So, in fact, we have a number of initiatives that we've done of the U.S. partnership called Beyond Doom and Gloom, Engage in Solutions. And getting these textbooks and online learning materials and instructor resources up to date, all of that helps not only the students, but then the projects and the world move from the doom and gloom. Also, do you know other authors that you think would be interested in this? You put it in the chat if you would. If you're watching this as a recording, you can send it to us and we will reach out to them. And what do you want from us? You know, do you want help? Do you want just a beginning discussion where we can show you, given your book, you give us a table of contents and we'll give you a bunch of different examples? Do you want us to kind of take you on a tour of what the EOP materials are? What kind of pops to the top for you in terms of what you want to do? And we've cleared some time to meet with you. So these are times that are available over the next few days, but if you're watching this afterwards, you can reach out to us with times, and you can just reach me at president@uspartnership.org and let us know when you would like to get together. The work that EOP has done is outstanding, so outstanding that, and so timely that we were excited when we connected and said, okay, let's take this to the next level. Let's use what we've learned in terms of getting it into online learning materials, textbooks, instructor resources, and let's do this with Engineering for One Planet. Now, you may have courses and books that are not engineering. It might be physics. It might be calculus. I actually know a calculus book that all the story problems are about climate. So, and it was embedded into this other program, and it was this woman who was at Stanford who wrote it. It was really exciting to see what they've done. But we have so many materials. And instead of that feeling of I don't have time to deal with this, because of course we all have to deal with the sustainability of the planet and the reduction of human suffering, that instead let us help make it easier for you so that it fits in with your time schedule. So that's what I've got in terms of possibilities for you. And we can open it up to questions if you have them. I think I'm going to end the recording at this time so that if you want to talk about personal, you know, maybe you got a problem with an editor, maybe you got a problem with your timeline or something you tried. So I'm just going to turn off the recording and then we can all share, okay? That's great. You know, I just want to add one thing to the recording because you brought up something important. This doesn't have to be textbook. It could be your online learning materials that you use, right? It could be that it's the instructor resources. It may be a book that you're using, but you want to update just the instructor resources. And sometimes it's reaching out. I know we got it into that Intro to Psych textbook because some of the teachers who were the adapters, right? That's where the cash flow was coming to them, said, look, we want this. And so that motivated then the author. So, that's another thought as well. And if you're not teaching out of textbooks, to talk to your colleagues who are. So those are other possible strategies here. Yeah,